What's happening, everybody? It's Billy Nash. This is the Luxury Real Estate Podcast with me, Billy Nash, and we're at episode 16. Welcome to all my loyal listeners and new listeners. So what a crazy 2 weeks. I'm sure everybody's been seeing the headlines of banks collapsing, the Fed coming to the rescue, your deposits over $250,000 are not insured, and it was just absolute chaos in the markets over the last 10 to 12 days. Well, guess what we call that? Opportunity, right? Opportunity. Last week, I was a guest on Jason Rash's podcast. He had an emergency roundtable with some experts in 3 distinctively different areas. And if you didn't listen to that one on episode 15, listen up, because I think our thoughts on the following week were spot on, right? I said, listen, where there's smoke, there's fire. And after the SVB collapse, there were more things to come. More consolidation coming. And I'm still a big believer that these type of things don't fix themselves overnight. So it's very interesting because I had planned on talking about the 2008 collapse of Bear Stearns, where I worked, for my episode 15. And the funny thing is, it was the exact 15 years prior, on the anniversary of when Bear collapsed. So it was just amazing that 24 hours later, SVB collapsed in Silicon Valley, one of the largest banks, financial institutions in the country. Within 72 hours, was pretty much on the auction block. Just incredible. Stock lost pretty much all of its value. Bondholders got smoked. And at the end of the day, the depositors had to get a backstop from the Federal Reserve. They came in and said, oh, we can't let this have contagion into the system. So they came in and what I believe they had no choice was to stop the contagion and spread of something that could have gotten a lot worse. Don't think it's over, as a week later, we've just saw Credit Suisse get gobbled up by UBS, 2 fierce competitors. That's like merging the New York Mets and the Boston Red Sox. So I don't think that's going to be too great of a party to celebrate over the next 6 months to a year. They also said that merger is going to take at least 5 years to complete. So at the end of the day, there could be a lot of skeletons in that closet. So we'll see how that pans out. Very interesting. So the world is changing so quick. Headlines are coming at you every 10 minutes. But how does this affect your business? So first, I want to address something which I think is probably appropriate about my last days at Bear Stearns, because I understand, because I was there, what it feels like as an employee of a well-capitalized institution to literally lose almost all of its value in a matter of weeks. And so there are, I'm not talking about the chairman and some of the senior executives at these banks, because guess what? They see what's coming down the pike. This is not something where they woke up in the morning and they go, holy shit, what just happened? This takes months and months and months of bad planning to blow up, right? So with the Fed raising interest rates as aggressively as they have done for the last 12 months, the responsible thing to do is to hedge your bets when your portfolio's long, right? If you're out, 20, 30 years in your fixed income investments and you're not properly hedged, and the Fed goes on one of the fastest increase of interest rates in years, guess what? Bad things happen. And that's what played out. So there's a lot of other banks throughout the system that could be in the same situation. But if you think that happened overnight, it's months and months and months in the works. So, shame on you for not being properly hedged and protecting your clients. Remember that word, protecting your clients. And that's what we do in luxury real estate, in the real estate business. We protect our clients, whether it's on the buy side or the sell side. My job is to protect you. Your job as a listener, as an entrepreneur who has clients, protect your clients. Your clients are your lifeline, your lifeblood to your business and to your success. So you cherish those clients. You have relationships. And that always turns out in the long run to be the best outcome for your business. Cherish your clients. So let's go back to the Bear Stearns. So I do feel for the employees at some of these institutions, because at the end of the day, their 401ks that could be loaded up in their own company stock is pretty much, going poof or down 60 or 70%. So I understand that. And it's hard, to be in an environment when there's a fire sale for your business. And let's now go to my Bear Stearns history, and then we're going to kick right back into real estate. So Bear Stearns was very interesting. It was a great company. We were the fourth biggest investment bank in the world. It was run by Ace Greenberg, not when we collapsed, but Ace built an amazing company, employee loyalty, didn't cut every cost possible. Because he always thought about the bottom line and our customers first. That was Ace Greenberg's style. I love him and I miss him. Ace passed away a few years ago. But Ace, if you ever have a chance, read the book, Memos from the Chairman. And that's all Ace Greenberg's memos to all the employees about how to cut costs. And again, always put your customer first, and you'll have a big, profitable franchise. They also recommend that in business school to people that are getting their MBA in business is Memos of a Chairman, from the Chairman. So if you never read it, get it. And all it is an excerpt of all of his memos to the employees. It's pretty cool stuff. So Jimmy Kane, of course, took over after Ace. Ace was our chairman emeritus. But on that fateful week that Bear Stearns collapsed, I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was 15 years ago, pretty much to the day of the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. So it's just amazing how out of nowhere these collapses can come. And that's why you always have to be prepared. So when Bear collapsed that week, I will never forget it. There was some uncertainty running through the system. Bear stock went down about 60, 70% over the course of about 2 or 3 weeks. And then we started to get the liquidity question. And internally, of course, we were getting indications that our liquidity was fine and Bear Stearns was in a good position. So on that Wednesday, the prior Wednesday before we collapsed over the weekend, on Friday, we were actually listened to a conference call, through senior management, and we were reassured to reassure our clients, actually very similar to what Credit Suisse did last week, that everything was fine. We had plenty of liquidity. So I was in Florida visiting my dad, God rest his soul. And I said to Dad, listen, we're, Bear Stearns is having some issues, but we're going to be fine. Senior management has reassured us that we are good to go. And I was with a client the next day. I was visiting my dad in Florida, and we were at the Boca Resort. And I wanted to reinsure him. He had a substantial amount of assets with me. I was in the private banking group. And I said to him, listen, we're going to be fine. We had our call yesterday and everything seems to be on track and we have no liquidity issues. And he said to me, well, Billy, why don't you take a look at what's on the radio, what's on the television behind you? And so I looked and it said that Bear Stearns needed an emergency loan from the Fed and from JP Morgan. So that was the beginning of the end for Bear Stearns. So I thought I would stay through the weekend in Florida. And then I said to my dad, you know what, Dad, I got to go back to the office. So I will never forget it. I flew back from Florida back to New Jersey, and I went to my office on Saturday morning, and our building was filled with employees because I get it. I understand. I'm sure the same thing was happening at Silicon Valley Bank. Employees were concerned. This was our livelihood. This was our business. And most importantly, we were there to help our clients. Communication is key in luxury real estate and commercial real estate. If you're not communicating with your client about things that are happening in the marketplace, you're doomed. You have to stay in touch with your clients. Information is power. Information is power. So on that fateful day, on Saturday, I remember the office being totally filled. And this is a fact. Bear Stearns ran out of copying paper over the weekend because we didn't know what was going on. as far as we were concerned, they were locking the doors on Monday morning, literally chaining up the building. And so over the weekend, everybody was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And I will never forget this. There were bankers from other financial institutions in our building because we were going through what they call a fire sale auction. Had to sell the business to contain the potential disasters that could be coming in the future. So we all knew as Bear Stearns advisors and employees who was a banker looking to buy Bear Stearns and who worked for Bear Stearns, because everybody in the company that was there that were in the business for Bear Stearns, employees, bankers, we all had that look of like, deer in the headlights, like, oh my God, we got to get prepared. This is like Armageddon in the financial industry. But we knew who those bankers were that worked for the other financial institutions because they were walking around with little books that they put together to talk about our business because they were ready to make an offer or potentially make offers, and they had smiles on their face. And that was an unbelievable tell on who was employed by Bear Stearns and who was there to buy the business for peanuts on the dollar. So the next night was a sleepless night on Saturday. Stayed in Manhattan, stayed in our offices. And then on Sunday, there was still no news. There was no news of what's going on with the company. I sat there in our office with my partners at the time, and we all had no idea what was happening. And then I will never forget our manager coming into our office on Sunday afternoon. Again, no more copying paper in the entire building. And he came in our office with tears in his eyes. And this is a guy that was at Bear Stearns his entire career. And he said, I will never forget this. It's over. It's exactly what he said. It's over. And at that point, it was about 4:00 in the afternoon. No one was coming to rescue the bank. And at the end of the day, they were locking the doors in the morning and chaining them. And the business was cooked. I mean, cooked like well done, hamburger, steak, whatever you want to call it. Done. And then about 6:00, still in our offices, CNBC, like they're doing also, and Bloomberg and everybody on the street is talking about the potential collapse of Bear Stearns. And then we got the lifeline, $2 a share from JP Morgan that night. I thought it was a typo. There's no way they're going to buy this franchise for $2 a share. And guess what? That was the reality of it. And it was a done deal. Bear Stearns was no more over the course of 72 hours. And again, these were things that were in the works for months. Just like when I say some of these institutions, it's not like they wake up in the morning. They kind of get a feeling for things that are happening. Different situation, because this was all about the banking system in general, the over leverage, the real estate market, the rating agencies. It was a different type of contagion in 2008 that's happening now. But it was an incredible, incredible experience. The next day was the St. Patrick's Day parade in New York. And I remember walking through that parade and saying how ironic it was. And we actually walked to another bulge bracket institution that made us an offer we couldn't refuse. And we left and we moved our clients over safely and protected them. And the rest is history. So that was my kind of experience. So I do feel for those employees that are working at some of these regional banks, some of the banks that have collapsed in the last week. And in my opinion, again, this is not a doom and gloom podcast, but there is more things to come. This doesn't just fix itself in a week. It just doesn't happen that way, right? So it's like throwing a deck chair off the Queen Mary. There is going to be a ripple effect of what's happening. And it's going to ripple through the real estate industry from a lending standpoint. And it's also going to have a major ripple effect in commercial real estate. And it's also going to have a major effect on private equity coming out of Silicon Valley and the ability for startup companies to raise capital. And that's critical. And we talked about a couple public real estate companies that I've mentioned before that I just think are going to have a difficult time in this marketplace to raise capital to fund your business. And people who know me know who those candidates are. Publicly traded real estate companies. So let's switch this. How do you turn this into a positive, right? Because it sounds like, oh my God, this podcast I got to turn off because he's so negative. I'm never negative. I'm just talk reality. As a matter of fact, I had an agent I talked to yesterday, and he said to me, I would never say the things that you say on your podcast. Well, why? Because I speak the truth, and it's reality, and it's unscripted. This is the way I roll, right? No prisoners. Let's go. Let's rock and roll. So what does this mean for you and your business? I look at this as, there's going to be carnage, but look what just happened. In February, real estate sales were up 15% year over year, right? 15%. And it's just what I said in my prior podcast. A third of the agents are dropped out, right? Probably more. And deals were up 15% year over year. So guess what that tells me? The fog is lifted, just like I said. There's always something to do. There's always a deal ready to be had. And if you stay the course, right, and you stick to a disciplined approach, building your brand, take care of your customers always, and build relationships, good things happen. And that's what we're seeing. So another thing that's a positive for the real estate industry, right, is that's the first time in 11 years that we've seen the median price in houses drop. Well, guess what? Whether you're a buyer or you're a seller, it's still a good thing. It's now officially, in my opinion, a buyer's market. So you can negotiate and you're in a better position. And if you're a seller, you have to realize that you have to be realistic on pricing. And that's where top agents come in. Agents that know how to relay that message of what's happening in the marketplace. We just put something on the market, literally yesterday. And I had a detailed conversation with the client who's the seller. We took the listing. He fired his agent after 5 days, not because of us, because he came out at an expectation that was just completely out of whack of reality. So guess what? What is my job? My job is to tell you what your property's worth. And at the end of the day, you have to listen to the market. When the market speaks, listen. And that's what's happening. And that's critical. So he probably would have went into what I call the lower the price death spiral for the next 6 months and had to lower, and then finally get a deal. Well, guess what? I took the listing and I took immediately almost 20% off that list price, because that's the reality of what's happening. You can't think about 2021 pricing and the beginning of 2022. The pandemic is over. Prices are correcting, and you have to adjust to it, right? And guess what? Just through social media, we already have a showing today, right? And that thing may go under contract because it's priced correctly, it's marketed correctly, and I didn't blow smoke up this seller's you-know-what to buy the listing. I don't buy listings. I sell properties, right? And that's the key. So if you're building your business or you're in the business, whatever it is, and you listen to this podcast, you have to adjust to the market, right? There's a lot of negative headlines right now about a lot of stuff. Right? But take all that and use it as a positive. Educate your clients on what's happening, right? Like I say, there's always a deal in town, right? And especially now with a third of the realtors, that in the last 2 years might have been order takers, they're gone. They're out. Now the skill set comes in, right? How do you want to run your practice over the next 2 years? You got to double down on your marketing. You got to get out there and communicate with your clients, build relationships, and be out there talking about what's happening in the markets, what's happening around the world, and how it affects your real estate. I think there's going to be a crazy opportunity in commercial real estate over the next 2 years. Watch that hammer drop because that's coming next. But as far as your business and your real estate, and your clients, whether you're on the list side or the sell side, you make sure that you are communicating at least once a week with them, and they know that you have your finger on the pulse to help them navigate through some of these storm clouds because it's important. Think of it this way. Right now, we're all on a 747 and we're hitting a bunch of turbulence, right? The banking system, real estate agents quitting, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Turbulence. And what happens when you're on a plane when you hit a little turbulence? Knock on wood, it doesn't crash, right? 99.9%, what happens? You find smooth air. And that's going to wrap it up with that. So a lot of headlines flying out. Stay focused, stay disciplined, stick to your brand, take care of your clients, build relationships. And I promise that when this turbulence is over and the smooth air hits, good things will happen to you and your business. And remember, always take care of your clients. With that, I love you. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I got a little fired up. I've got 2 coffees in and I'm ready to rock. Have a great day. Sell some properties. And everybody, I love you. Coming at you hard and non-scripted luxury real estate with Billy Nash. I appreciate everybody, wherever you listen to this podcast, on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeart, wherever it is. Give me a good rating. Share it with your friends. And I appreciate all the downloads. I love yous. And I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.